Snow, steel, and silence, then the thunder of 10,000 hooves. In the frozen winter of 1241, 100 men made 10,000 of history's most feared warriors turn and run. They didn't do it with better weapons, or with reinforcements, but with something the Mongol Empire had never truly met before, men who had already accepted death. Picture it. 100 exhausted warriors standing against a fresh Mongol tumen, a full division of 10,000 cavalry. These weren't just any soldiers. They were the last free warriors of the Rus, a final shield between the Mongol horde and the total erasure of their world. The odds, 100 to 1. The chance of survival, 0. By the end of this, you'll understand how terrain, psychology, and pure, stubborn will created one of history's most impossible victories. You'll see why the Mongols' greatest strength became their fatal weakness here. You'll learn the forgotten Viking battle technique that stopped horse archers cold. And you'll see how a single frozen river changed the course of an empire. But here's the truly extraordinary part: the Mongols erased this battle from their records. Why would the greatest military force in history want to forget one skirmish? What made these warriors different from every other army the Mongols had crushed from China to Hungary? The commander of these 100, a man known only in whispers as Bjorn the Unbreakable, did what historians call the impossible. How could infantry survive the arrow storm that broke civilizations? How could 100 men break the spirit of thousands who had never known defeat? To understand how 100 men stalled an empire, we must first understand the terror that was consuming the known world. What happened in that nameless valley wasn't just a battle. It was the moment cold mathematics bowed to hotter legend, when the unstoppable Mongol force met something even more powerful: men who were no longer afraid to die. By 1241, the Mongol Empire wasn't just winning wars, it was erasing civilizations. From the Pacific Ocean to the gates of Vienna, no army had withstood their new way of war. Cities that had stood for centuries fell in days. Armies 10 times their size vanished. Take Kiev, the jewel of the Rus. Their success rested on 3 pillars: speed, range, and terror. Each warrior had 3 to 5 horses, letting them travel distances that seemed magical. Their composite bows could punch through armor from over 300 yards away, farther than most enemies could see clearly. But their most powerful weapon was fear. They cultivated it deliberately. Pyramids of skulls marked their path. Refugees told stories of unstoppable demons who drank blood and ate the hearts of brave men. But in the deep northern forests of the Rus, something survived that the Mongols hadn't calculated for: the Varangians. These were the last echo of the Viking Age. Not the raiders of old, but their descendants, hardened by centuries of frontier warfare. They carried the old beliefs that dying in battle was the highest honor, and the old weapons, massive two-handed axes and heavy round shields. They were relics facing a revolution. While the Mongols mastered mobile warfare, the Varangians still fought in the shield wall. Military logic said they should have been swept aside like dust. The strategic situation was hopeless. The Mongol forces under Bata Khan had already crushed the Volga Bulgars and annihilated the Rus principalities one by one. They were pushing toward the rich city of Novgorod. The last free lands of the north were about to fall. A force of 10,000 riders under a commander named Noyan Shagatai, a veteran of the wars in China and Persia, was sent to clear the northern forests. They moved through the winter woods like wolves, looking for the last pockets of resistance to crush. What they found was 100 men who had made a choice. In a nameless valley between the forests and the frozen Kama River marshes, the last free warriors of the north had chosen their ground. They couldn't run. There was nowhere left. They couldn't hide. They'd be found. So they did the one thing the Mongols never expected: they planted their feet, locked their shields, and waited. Dawn broke gray and bitter. 10,000 riders moved through the forest, a tide of felt and leather and steel. Each man was a master archer, carrying 2 bows and over 100 arrows. They were the ultimate military machine of their century. Against them stood 100 men who looked like they'd stepped out of a saga. The Varangians were giants for their time, many over 6 feet tall. They wore heavy mail hauberks and held pattern-wielded axes passed down through generations. In the hands of their strongest were the dreaded Dane axes, 6 feet of ashwood topped with a crescent of steel that could cut through a horse and rider alike. They had chosen their ground with the cunning of men planning their own deaths. The valley was a geographic trap, barely 200 yards wide, choked by dense forest on both sides that broke up cavalry charges. Behind them, the frozen river blocked retreat but also prevented encirclement. In front, the ground rose slightly, forcing an attacker to charge uphill into a narrowing funnel. Their commander, Bjorn the Unbreakable, was a legend. 60 winters had whitened his beard, but he could still swing an axe younger men struggled to lift. He had fought the Mongols before and survived. He had learned. The psychological battle began first. The Mongols announced themselves with their terror tactics, thundering drums, war cries in a dozen tongues, the display of Horsdale standards that had witnessed the fall of empires. The Varangians answered with silence. 100 men, standing like statues. No shouts, no chants. Just the mist of their breath in the frozen air. It was unnerving. The Mongols had conquered half the world, and every enemy had met them with noise. This silence was something new. Chagatai saw the 100 men standing in the open and must have thought it a joke. The solution was standard, the arrow storm. He gave the command. 5,000 composite bows bent as one. The sky darkened with a hissing cloud of arrows, each capable of punching through mail. The Varangian shields came up as one, overlapping like scales. Arrows thudded into the wooden roof. Shafts that found gaps met mail armor that turned them aside. A few men grunted as arrows found flesh in arms or legs, but the line held. Not a man fell. Volley after volley fell for 10 minutes. The shields bristled like porcupines. Still, the silent line held. The Mongols were baffled. Every other enemy wavered under the arrow storm. These men simply endured. Chagatai tried the feigned retreat, a classic Mongol trick. 1,000 riders charged, shot, then wheeled to flee, hoping to draw the Varangians into the open. They taunted them, shouting in broken Rus, "Come out and die with honor." The Varangians didn't move a single step. The discipline was absolute. Frustration began to spread through the Mongol ranks. Whispers started. Some spoke of northern magic, of pacts with frost demons. By mid-morning, Chagatai decided on a direct assault. Enough games. He sent 500 of his best heavy cavalry, veterans who had shattered European knights, in a full charge down the slope, lances lowered. But the ground itself betrayed them. The morning sun had melted a thin layer on the ice. Horses bred for the dry steppes slipped and struggled. The slope also compressed the charge, packing the riders tighter as the valley narrowed. The Varangians stood motionless until the last moment. At 25 yards, they erupted. A roar from 100 throats shattered the silence. Horses shied, the charge wavered, and then it hit. The sound was apocalyptic, cracking wood, screaming metal, shrieking horses. The shield wall, braced against the frozen earth, held. Lances shattered on northern oak. Horses crashed into the wall and reared. Then the axes rose. The Varangian counter-strike was a brutal, mechanical harvest. Dane axes, swung with a lifetime strength, carved through Mongol armor. The snow turned from white to crimson in seconds. The elite cavalry fell, and their dying horses created a ghastly new obstacle, a wall of thrashing flesh. The second wave of lighter cavalry, trying to pick through the carnage, entered the killing zone. They were too close to shoot effectively, and too packed to maneuver. The Dane axes reached them, their sabers could not reach back. The valley funnel had become a slaughterhouse. Then came the moment that changed everything. A Varangian, overcome with battle fury, a berserker's rage, broke from the line. He threw aside his shield, gripped his axe two-handed, and charged into the Mongol ranks. He killed a dozen men before arrows finally cut him down. The Mongols had never seen a man ignore death itself. Bjorn the Unbreakable then stepped forward. 3 arrows stuck from his body. He pulled each one out slowly, never breaking his gaze from Chagatai, and threw them aside. The message was unmistakable. Pain meant nothing here. The battle wore on for hours. The Mongols tried fire arrows. 2 Varangians became living torches. Their brothers pulled them back, ended their suffering mercifully, and closed the gap in the line without a word. By the 7th hour, Mongol arrows were running low. The pile of horse corpses was 6 feet high. The once frozen ground was a bloody, slippery bog that trapped horses and men. And then, the Varangians did the unthinkable. They advanced. The shield wall, bristling with thousands of arrows, took one step forward, then another. They began to chant an old, heathen song of death and glory. Chagatai, shamed and enraged, gathered his remaining best men for one final, all-or-nothing charge. He led it himself. The impact was tremendous. The Varangian center bent, and Mongols broke through. The fight dissolved into a desperate, close-quarters melee where skill blurred into instinct. In the chaos, Bjorn and Chagatai found each other. The young, swift Mongol commander against the old, wounded giant. Chagatai was faster. His saber found Bjorn's side. But Bjorn trapped the blade against his own body, and with his last strength, brought his grandfather's axe down in a final arc. Chagatai fell. And with him fell the Mongol will to fight. For the first time in a generation, the Golden Horde broke. It started as a step back, then a rush, then a full rout. 10,000 warriors turned from 100, not from strategy, but from sheer, cold fear. The Varangians did not pursue. They couldn't. Of the 100, 31 lay dead. Most of the survivors were wounded. Bjorn the Unbreakable lived just long enough to see the last Mongol banner vanish into the trees. "Tell them," he said, "we held." Then he died, still on his feet. The immediate effect was staggering. The leaderless Mongol force abandoned its strike on Novgorod. The delay gave the northern cities crucial weeks to prepare. The story of the 100 who broke in 2 months spread like wildfire, a spark of hope in a dark time. The Mongols never recorded this defeat. To their chroniclers, it didn't happen. But the strategic hesitation it caused was real. Suddenly, every narrow forest path looked like a potential death trap. The mathematics of conquest now had a terrible new variable: men who would not run, planted in ground where numbers didn't matter. The age of Vikings had ended centuries before, but in that nameless valley, its last breath was a roar that made an empire flinch. They proved that the unstoppable force could be stopped, not by a greater force, but by an immovable object. All it took was 100 men who decided that how they died mattered more than how long they lived. They came as conquerors. They left as storytellers of their own defeat. And in that silence they left behind, the silence after the thunder of hoofs had faded, a legend was born, written not in ink, but in frozen blood and unbreakable will.